story of this king has taken an ominous turn in the Gospel of Matthew, and Jesus is in the upper room celebrating the Passover meal with his disciples, and he tells them that he'll be betrayed, that he's going to be given over to death. And the disciples don't know what to make of it, and they're there to celebrate the Passover, this wonderful moment of deliverance in the history of Israel, the celebration of God's deliverance, yet Jesus is talking of death. And the followers don't quite know how to handle this, and so Jesus says, let's go from here, and they leave the upper room and they go out to Gethsemane, which is an olive grove. Actually, a Gethsemane is a place where olives are pressed down to extract the oil. And so they're headed towards this place where they're staying, which is an olive press. And it's this olive grove where the olive trees are. And Jesus enters into this place, and he asks some of his closest friends something that's kind of strange, that we might wonder what's going on. He asks them to keep watch with him. He takes Peter and James and John, and he says, come keep watch with me while I pray. Now this is actually something that is a new tradition in Israel. And by new I mean just not all the way dating back to the time of the Exodus. You see, in Exodus chapter 12, when God is describing the Passover feast, at the end of chapter 12, it says, just as a comment, as an aside, it says, for this day the children of Israel keep vigil, because the Lord kept vigil over them at the Passover. In other words, as the angel of death was passing over Egypt, God kept vigil. He kept watch over his children. And so this tradition develops in Israel that every single household has to have someone stay awake the entire night after the Passover meal. The Passover meal is to be had after the sun goes down, and then someone from that household has to stay awake. And the reason they're staying awake is they're watching for the return of Elijah. The book of Malachi prophesied that before the Messiah comes, Elijah would return. And this other tradition develops that when Elijah returns, he will instruct the children of Israel with what they are to do with Elijah's cup. This is a cup that's placed at the table during Passover that's refused. It's not drank, it's just filled and it sits. And it's actually set to symbolize the cup of Jeremiah 25, the cup that God pours out on all of the nations, the cup of God's wrath, which he judges the nations by for all of their wickedness, for all of their sin. And Elijah will instruct the Jews what they are supposed to do with this cup. And so someone from every house must keep vigil during the night to watch for Elijah to see if he will come. This is the night of watching. The night to decide when God's judgment will come on the nations. And so as Jesus withdraws into the garden to be with his disciples, he brings three along and he asks them to keep watch. Why? It's the night of watching. Jesus is the one who will stay awake, but he doesn't want to do it alone. Jesus doesn't want to stay awake alone during the night of watching. He wants the company. He wants his three closest friends to come and keep watch with him. And so he withdraws in the garden and he begins to pray. And he starts to pray about a cup that he obviously does not want to drink. And you begin to see the picture that it's very possible that this is the cup which Elijah would tell the Hebrews what to do with. It's this cup that Jesus will have to drink. It's this cup, the cup of judgment, the cup of wrath, which Jesus prays, God, if there's any way for this cup to pass over me, take it away, but not my will, but yours be done. And as he returns to his friends, he finds them asleep. And he wakes them and he says, can you not keep watch with me for an hour? It's the night of watching. That's what we do on this night. On this night, we stay awake all night. It's the night of watching. It's what we do. And he goes back to pray. And He comes back and, again, they're asleep. And it's probably something that Peter has already done in his life. It's very easy to imagine that there were multiple times in Peter's young life when he would have stayed awake on behalf of his family during the night of watching. This is not new to Peter. He knows how to stay awake during the night of watching. But on this Passover night, there is only one who can keep vigil. On this Passover night, only one can remain awake. On this Passover night, only one can drink the cup.